We were literally like working out of a garage, and we just had desks, and Julian and I and one administrator, and we went from there, and then we hired a space. And we just went for it one property at a time. We didn't pay ourselves a salary for quite a few years, and we just ate what we killed. And there were many times we were like, how the heck are we going to pay the rent? And, it does sharpen you up. And, when you've got those bills coming and you need to do a deal, you go and do them. It's a tough way to learn, but it's a good way to learn.
Welcome to Checks and Balances, brought to you by Partners Life. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. Today we've got our extra special guest, Mark Harris, back on the podcast. He is the Managing Director of New Zealand Sotheby's International Realty, and he's here to give us his story.
We're back in your life. We're still in Queenstown. Mark, thank you for joining us again to tell us all about you.
Oh, thank you for having me, boys. Yeah, good to be here.
So you've got a really interesting stories, obviously running Sotheby's New Zealand. We're going to get to the bit where like, how the hell did you do that at 31, 32? But tell us about before Sotheby's, what was happening before you kind of took over this empire within New Zealand?
Yeah, well, I'm a Sydney boy, originally born and bred, and schooled there and university there. And then from university days in Sydney, got into the TV industry. So started off as a junior media sales rep at Channel 10, and then did that for 3 or 4 years, developed a direct sales department for regional Channel 10. So I started dealing with clients, Harvey Norman and the music industry, etc. Got into the production side of television and wrote a rock and roll music program, which we had live on Channel 10 for 4 years in the 90s, which is lots of fun.
Hold up. Rock and roll TV show? What's...
Rocky Horror Summer Bay.
Yeah, tell me more about this.
Yeah, it was... I was dealing with Sony Music, and Sony wanted more exposure on free-to-air television on Channel 10. And so between us and another mate, we wrote a program called Ground Zero, which was 2 hours live every Friday night around Australia. And it was the first attempt at sort of interactive TV in Australia with, we had kids sitting on computers on the set, which was live, and fans emailing in, the old box computers, and the print would come out of the computer. They'd read out the email to the guest, and then we had bands on it, and it unbelievably went for 4 years. I don't know how, because it was absolutely terrible. But I think the more mistakes we made, the more people liked it, and more they watched it, and it was fun.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so you did that, then what happened?
And then in the background, I was sailing. I got involved with the 18-foot skiff series in Australia, which is the professional circuit over there, Sydney Harbour based, but travelling around the country, Hamilton Island, West Australia, Brisbane, Auckland, and competing on that, and that was all televised, and it was on during the lunchtime of the cricket in the 90s, and it was heaps of fun. Like it was competitive and professional, but it was also a great laugh and a great bunch of guys doing it, and then I ended up taking that over because I was one of the only ones who knew anything about TV in the background, and I ran it for 2 years. So I produced it and got all the sponsorship on board and did the deal with the networks, etc. And then dried up with the Sydney Olympics. It was just too hard to compete against that with everything that was going on. And so that was 2000, and I shifted to property.
Right. Okay. And then your property career started in Sydney, did it?
It did. Yeah, it did with an Aussie firm, and their idea was that they wanted to launch in New Zealand, and I'd been at it for 3-4 months, and they said, "You want to go launch it over in Queenstown?" And I thought, well, that sounds like a nice idea. And at the time, I was living in a rented home, and it burnt down.
That's literally. It's a sign for
literally.
love.
Oh, yeah,
definitely.
this
done. Yeah.
It was a sign, and I thought, okay, something's telling me.
Yeah.
I'm out of here, and I got on a plane and came to Queenstown.
So that wasn't with Sotheby's though. That was with a different firm.
That was with an Aussie firm. Came over here, employed to open that up, and did that. Got to the ground here and met my now business partner Julian Brown, who was a local and had done plenty of real estate previously, which I thought was great because I'd obviously had this TV background and sort of a corporate background, and he had the real estate experience. So we combined and ran that for a year or so, and then headed out on our own basically, and took our own shot.
What was Queenstown like at that time, like compared to what it is now?
Well, it's pretty sleepy. Coming from Sydney and arriving here, I loved it, and I'm into my skiing and my outdoor stuff, so it was awesome. But it was a pretty sleepy town. It was largely back then we were doing deals with people coming here to buy holiday homes.
Yeah.
And that was about it. It wasn't transacting within itself so much, which it does now. So, and, from there it's just expanded and, it is what it is now.
And had you spent much time in Queenstown before you moved over here?
We'd done one episode of the music show here, and I ended up having to jump off a bungee and all sorts, and really enjoyed it, and sort of really blew me away. So that was probably part of it when the option came up. I was like, well, I've been there and I like it. I can see the vibe that it has and the fun that you can have there, and the possibilities for it for interest from offshore probably and around New Zealand for it to grow. So it was, I guess, a bit of a gut kind of feeling, and I did have one mate here who's a chiropractor, and he very kindly allowed me to stay on his couch for a few weeks, and then we went from there. He's a great guy, still operating here today.
Yeah, cool.
Nice. So you spent that 12 months working for that Australian firm. You met your business partner. Take us through what do people think about going out on their own, doing their own thing? What do people think? Don't do anything. Take us back to that time. Tell us about how a bloke in his early 30s talked his way into getting Sotheby's New Zealand.
Yeah, it was a big call. We didn't really know what we were doing. And I guess what we did have is we had access to quite a lot of stock in terms of property stock. Jack's Point was getting underway, and the developers of that property wanted us to come and market it for them. And so we had that in the background as, at least we had some property to sell. And then we thought about what brand would appeal to this market and New Zealand and isn't here already, and could really, I guess, put New Zealand in a spotlight and add value to projects, and toss quite a few around. And then Sotheby's, we came across it as a brand and thought, wow, that'd be the one. And I actually chatted with a few people in Sydney about it who I trusted, and we contacted them in New York, and they flew out, and we met them in Sydney, and probably because we had that stock behind us was a big part of it as well, because I had confidence that we weren't just go and stick a sign on the ground and go, here we and the developer was happy to support us as well with that. And there was other agencies competing for it, and I think just with the experience we had and the hunger we had for it, and the stock we had, we were lucky enough to do the deal.
I love that phone call. Like, is this Sotheby's New York? Yeah. Have you heard of Queenstown?
Yeah. And then they just quickly Google and be like, oh yeah, we can shoot down there.
Yeah. But they're not even to come here.
Yeah.
No. Sydney and be like,
we'll meet you in Sydney.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, like, I guess the Sotheby's brand, and certainly back then, was it still sitting in that sort of like premium space? Yeah,
it was. Back then it was the license to operate the brand for real estate was done by a company called Realty, which is now called Anywhere, which is a publicly listed company in New York on the NASDAQ, and is the largest real estate franchise business in the world. So they did a deal with the auction house, which is based in London, to use the brand for real estate purposes. And it's a 100-year deal. So our deal is with them. And they had, back then, they hadn't really expanded anywhere around the world for real estate purposes. There were auction houses in the UK and in Australia, and I think in large parts of Europe. But this part of the world was, for real estate purposes, very, very new. So we got in at a good time.
Cool. Okay. And then so you talked your way into the deal. Having the stock helped. Everybody, when they kind of go into business, has a plan. A lot of the time that plan doesn't necessarily work out as you think. Those early days, once you talked your way into it and they said yes, how did it go?
Well, yeah, we panicked. And thought, what have we done? But
now we've got to do it.
Now we've got to do it. Now we've got to execute it. Well, they put a minimum office number of 5 on us as part of the deal. So
they're like, have some expense.
We had one. We were literally like working out of a garage, like not just saying it. We actually were in a garage, and we just had desks, and Julian and I and one like an administrator, and we went from there, and then we hired a space. And, obviously we made sure we had the space before they came out from the US to come and say g'day again. And we just went for it one property at a time. We didn't pay ourselves a salary for quite a few years, and we just ate what we killed. And there were many times we were like, how the heck are we going to pay the rent? And, it does sharpen you up. And, when you've got those bills coming and you need to do a deal, you go and do them. So, it's a tough way to learn, but it's a good way to learn because it, as I say, sharpens you up.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, right? And James and I always talk about this. Like, we will always pick up the phone for a customer, like almost no matter what we are doing. We're like, yep, cool, pick up, and just like, because you're on the end of that as a customer who needs to get something done, and it's one of those things like you sort of say, if you need to get the deal done, you're pretty sharp on it.
Yeah, and real estate's quite tough because, as I say, we were not salaried for quite some time, and the agents now, all agents, none of them are on salaries, or very few, and so it's quite cutthroat. So they do need to work for, and they get paid well, but they do work for it.
Yeah,
and you can have a month when it's fantastic, but you can have a couple of months when it's not. So you've got to be fairly thick-skinned, and you apply yourself to it.
Yeah, we saw a lot of agents kind of coming into the market. Unsurprisingly, 2020, 2021, 2022, and some of those have left fairly quickly.
Tail between their legs are off to do something else. Yeah.
Moment of silence for our
fallen comrades.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Before we move on, we talk all the time about planning and growing our wealth, but protecting that wealth is just as important. That's why having the right insurance in place can help when life goes unexpectedly.
And that's why this episode is brought to you by Partners Life, a New Zealand operated award-winning insurance provider with over 300,000 Kiwis insured and 89% of claims paid.
Partners Life understand that having some insurance is better than having no insurance. They have flexible and personalized solutions for any budget or situation.
Check out their website in our show notes below.
I'm keen to jump to 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
What was the GFC like for you?
Tough, yeah. It was a pretty tough time. We had quite a large office in town, and we downsized that dramatically. And we went from, I'm going to say 300 square meters down to about 60 square meters of space. And I just remember 12 of us all crammed in there in this tiny little space, going, "Well, this is us now, and we just got to get through this." And we did, and we battled away. And yeah, it was really hard. We had to cut a lot of people and just hang on, and it came back. And I remember at the tail end of it doing a couple of quite large high country station deals, which is the indicator that these wealthy buyers are coming back now. And it went from there. And back then it was, I think, a $12 million deal and an $8 million deal, and suddenly we were kind of like, okay, we're away again. But it was hard yards.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like a $12 million deal in, I don't know what, like 2009 or something like that.
That's a lot of letters.
It was quite a decent sized deal back then, and the sort of confidence started to return from there. But yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and in terms of like as a business owner, what advice would you have about, like, say you started with 5 people? How big is the team?
300 now, so we're just over. Yeah, so we've grown it steadily. And we don't want to be the biggest agency in the country. It's the brand doesn't. We don't want to be on every street corner, and but high quality mid-sized teams. That all work with each other around the country and refer business. And I can see it going to 400 or 500 in the next few years. And then so we just added on Victoria over in Australia, so that's the next challenge for us.
We're definitely going to come and talk about that a little bit. Being able to grow a business from 5 people in a garage to 300, how is your the mindset to be able? Has it been are you the kind of guy that's kind of got the vision board and seen that stuff out just one foot in front of what have you learnt about growing a business over that period of time?
Well, I think, we had a target of 5 because that's what we had. We had to have 5 offices, right? So
otherwise you don't have a business.
We have to do that. So, smart of the Americans to do that. And then we got to 5 and thought, well, we can do 6. And then we just kept on going, basically. And then we've just, kept at it and, been persistent. And, you get knocked over and you get up again, and, you have GFCs and earthquakes and ash clouds and pandemics, etc., and you just keep going. Blind faith.
Yeah. Talked before about moving your offices or moving the operation to Victoria and kind of opening up there. Talk me through that a little bit. How did that come about? What made you think that's the space to go to?
Yeah, so it started about 1.5 years ago, and there is an operator with the brand in Victoria at the moment, and he's been operating out of the peninsula down there in Mornington.
Yeah.
And the opportunity is there to expand it into the CBD, those suburbs like Toorak, South Yarra, etc., Hawthorn. And so the HQ in New York reached out to us, asked if we wanted to get involved. and it's taken a year and a half to get to this point. But
Yeah.
we've negotiated a deal with the existing owner there as a joint venture to expand it. And, it's fastest growing state in Australia, so we're pretty excited about it. The brand does belong there, like it should be in South Yarra and and Toorak, etc. And we're about to open an office there in the next few weeks with some great agents, and it's great. Here we go.
I love that the phone call went that way to New York and then it came back to you.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. Hey, it only took 20 years.
Yeah.
You're like, is my phone working?
Yeah.
Is it the dial up back there or what's going on? Coming back to the Melbourne deal. So like you've been doing this for a long time. You've built up this business. Some people would just be like, you know what? Like, I'm good. I got a good operation here.
Yeah.
I got plenty of things going on. Where does that drive come from to go, I want to keep growing and I want to keep expanding?
Yeah, my wife asked the same question.
Yeah, did she give me a call beforehand? She was like, can you tell him why we're doing this?
Now just look straight down the camera.
More blind faith. No, I just think, why not? It's right there. If the water wasn't between us, there would just be another, another territory, and it's exciting. I like the idea of having a foot back in Australia, and Melbourne's a great place, and where that leads to other places in Australia, let's wait and see. But just another opportunity that we need to take and fulfill.
It does make me think about a lot of the people we've spoken to over the episodes where they built something, and it's so many times it's not like this. Yeah, I'm gonna like set up this like big huge thing. It's just like I did one thing, then I had a problem, I fixed the problem, then I did the thing and I fixed the problem.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you alluded to there is, when an opportunity presents itself, you don't, no one jumps in without doing any DD, but you go, God, then you kind of just take the opportunities as they come, and it's not a light years stretch away. So you assess the risk and you go, we'll give it a crack.
Yeah, I don't think you want to overanalyze it, because you overanalyze things to death, and then you don't do them. And obviously you need to be sensible about it, but there's a certain element of risk that if you're going to go somewhere, you've got to have a crack, and why not? I think that's where the opportunities come. Yeah. Yes, there'll be times when you go, what the heck have we done? But if you stick at it and you're persistent,
Yeah. James and I got interviewed the other day, and someone was asking us like, what would you advise people for someone who's getting into like property investment? And my straight shot back was, don't overthink it. And they laughed, and I was like, I'm dead serious. You can do 1,000 spreadsheets and never pull the trigger, or you can just be like, I've assessed the risk. It seems all right. Let's give it a crack.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. Yeah, I mean, that was us, 31, 32 years old, and and here we are in the 50s, and we're still still rolling the dice, aren't we? Yeah.
What about, one of the, dare I say, privileges that you have is being in Queenstown and it being such a beautiful area. You get exposure to some seriously wealthy people who've done some big stuff worth a lot of money. What, interacting with those sort of people, what kind of lessons or takeaways have you had from?
Yeah, it's really one of the exciting things about this market here, because it's not a city market where you run a 4-week campaign. Well, in some areas of Queenstown you do, but at the higher end of the market, they don't just buyers are probably usually from somewhere else. So you quite often develop relationships with purchasers that they could be. You could be working with them for a year, 2 years, even 3 years. So you get to know them, and you do learn a bit from these entrepreneurs from around the world, and how they operate their businesses, and how they are as people, and quite a lot of them at that really high end are really humble, unsuspecting, cool people. And it's sort of like the higher up you go, the more cool they become, because it's,
the ego's gone.
The ego's gone. And they're more than happy to share ideas, and very welcoming. And, it's one of the things that really keeps me in the business, I think, is that opportunity to live and learn and associate with people like that.
Yeah, not good for you, Mike. If you've got to be cool to be a billionaire, you're in trouble, my guy.
Yeah. Like I counted that out a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, you're burning your face just from hot sauces you're cooking in there.
Let's not go there.
What about like in terms of for those really high end buyers when they purchase compared to somebody buying $1 million home? like I could imagine in my head, maybe it goes either way. They're like super particular about it, or they're running at such a high level that they make decisions really quickly compared to like I don't want to say a normal buy, but somebody at like a lower price band. What's the difference in the behaviors?
Yeah, I think people who have come from a corporate background and did a deal with a CEO a few weeks back from Australia and chairman, and just because he'd been around the block corporately and commercially, they are a little bit easier to deal with because you've got someone who wants to do a deal, and we obviously want to do a deal, and the vendor does, and we're on the same page. Then let's just make it happen, and let's not argue over the dishwasher. And I mean, obviously they're going to pay the price that they're not stupid. They're able to compare what's out there, and they work out what's what. But it does become a little simpler at that level at times if egos don't get involved. When egos get involved, it can be tricky, but generally good.
Yeah, I do think like as an investment advisor, way easier giving advice to somebody who's got $10 million and $10,000, because a lot of the time the $10,000 will be all of their money, while the person with 10, you're never getting all their money. It's a piece of the pie, right?
Yeah, and that person in 10 years' time, 20 years' time will be completely different to deal with because they would have done it 5 or 6 or 10 times. So
yeah. So then we've done Queenstown, we're doing Victoria. What's the ultimate goal? Is it you just want to take over Australia, the Southern Hemisphere? Is it, are we heading into the islands? What are you thinking?
One step at a time.
Yep.
Let's do Victoria and give that a really good nudge over the next couple of years and see how we can grow that, and then where that leads, to other parts of Australia, you never know. We'll wait and see. And obviously the headquarters in New York will be watching how it evolves.
Yeah.
And one step at a time. Islands, I'm not sure about. We did have a look at Fiji, and the licensing situation up there is a little loose. So we might stay this side of the islands.
Yeah,
fair enough. And I just want to, so we've talked about like kind of how you've built this thing up, 5 employees, 300, I think, like $1.6 billion a sale. Is that the last number?
We did $2 billion in 2021.
Right.
And then it's tapered off since in the last couple of years. This year we will be over 2 again.
Yep.
And then, the idea is to keep on growing it basically. So, we had that $1 billion target. We got that, and then, 2 and beyond, and let's just keep going at it.
Yeah. So I want to, you look at the story and go, well, he just did the thing. What was a time, if you look back at your journey and you go, like a challenge or something that was really tough that you struggled with, can you share a time that, and how you got through it?
Well, the GFC was definitely one when the market just stops because you can't. Your income is your the deals you're doing and the homes you're selling, and then that just parked up. And then I remember Christchurch was another one because we just opened an office in Victoria Street there in 2010, and then the earthquake hit. It had only been open about 6 months, and that was the end of that. And so that got shut down. And so we've gone forwards and come backwards, and then gone forwards again, and and just gradually we've gone more forwards than backwards. And so. Yeah, we just keep going at it basically, and I guess being persistent and bloody minded about it, and accepting knocks are going to happen, and they do, and not freaking out, and just keeping your head down and cracking on.
And because you kind of mentioned before that the team are on a most of the team are on a commission basis. What are you telling the team in those moments? Like when you're talking to everyone and they're pretty worried because income's on the line. What's the message you're delivering?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's quite hard to take them through those periods. Like COVID was a really interesting one where, there's a fair bit of freaking out going on, and just trying to stay calm and connected. And I remember we couldn't sort of see each other, so we were organising, daily interactive get-togethers and gin and tonics at 4:30, and we had gym sessions going, and so people could tap into that at home. And so just trying to keep the culture strong and positive, and keeping their heads up. And and this is this last year or two has been similar, where these rates have gone so high that it's been really tough for the agents, but also just everyone. And so that psychology of just keep at it and it'll come good. And here we are, like we're now at the cusp of another turn, and feel good about where we're at.
Yeah.
I guess it's been interesting as well in terms of like the Queenstown team, market's still going well versus like say other parts of the country. It must be a little bit odd in terms of the where you have people around the country and how they're feeling.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, because we've been pretty lucky down here, where it's been pretty consistent, and the deals have kept on flowing, and the agents have all, done okay over the last, couple of years. I mean, there's been tough times, but when we compare it to other pockets, places like Blenheim and Rotorua and even Auckland for that matter, it's been pretty hard, the last year or two. And, I remember we used to sort of tease and joke with the Auckland agents about, various things going on up there, but it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
I can definitely confirm, Mark, it is not funny. Okay. Awesome, Mark. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. It's always when we ask all the questions, it can be a little bit much. So thank you for sharing the story, and also answering your wife's question. Appreciate it. Much love to Partners Life for sponsoring this episode. Please subscribe, give us a review and a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.